Welcome back to Arsenal News TV, and today we're going to look at the Arsenal player ratings versus Chelsea as the Gunners lose 2-1 to the Chelsea. So in terms of the goalkeeper, it was Bernd Leno, and in terms of his player rating, I think he could do nothing for the Kai Havertz goal, but he should be having words with his defenders about how Chelsea's best attackers got gift wrapped 2-on-1, looked confident in the air and made a few lovely saves, but he made a few passing mistakes, but he wasn't punished for it. But for his performance, he deserves a 6. So in terms of the right back, it was Callum Chambers, and in terms of a true fullback, Callum Chambers is not it. But in his special inverted role, he does tend to flatter. He was physical and technically as good as if you've seen him, crucially a bit slow at times, but a solid outing, and I think for his performance today, I think he gets a standard 5 for his performance. Next up, we got Rob Holding, and he was a little sloppy in defence, grappling opponents rather than containing, but frustrated the daylights out of Hakim Ziyech. He was caught way too far up the pitch for Chelsea's opening goal, and then again 5 minutes later, it was not his best showing, and he was deservedly replaced by Ben White, and for his performance, I think it's fair to say he deserves a 4. So in terms of the player that partnered him, it was Pablo Mari, and he looks to have gained a step. He was visibly vocal, he was directing the team around, he made a number of key blocks and tackles, and he was tidy in possession. He was the only player back on a number of breakaways, and he defended well in most of those, and for his performance he deserves a 7. Next up, we got Kieran Tierney, and Kieran Tierney at his best is Kieran Tierney very well, and he preferred to let Chelsea attack down the Arsenal right, but on the few occasions they ventured over to the other side of the pitch, it didn't work out for them, and he played more like a left winger at times with those beautiful crosses, and I think he deserves a 7 for his performance. Next up, we got the midfielders, and firstly we got Thomas Partey, and I think for his performance he was involved throughout, and he did tackle and intercept brilliantly, and he did pick out a number of lovely passes. But if you have a player in Thomas Partey, is the fact that he did come off injured, but for the time he did play, I think it's fair to say he deserves a 7. Next up, we got Mohamed El Neni, and I think it was a classic Mohamed El Neni performance. He was sloppy in the ball and had some revolutionary thoughts about progressing the ball before deciding against it, but he defended quite well and anchored Thomas Partey, played centre back more than Rob Holding did in my opinion. But for his performance today, I think it's fair to say he deserves a standard 5. Next up, we got Emil Smith-Rowe, and he drew good positions and picked up little pockets of space as in his wants, and generally caused problems for the Chelsea midfield. Almost played as a second striker at times. He was unlucky to hit the post with a brilliant left-footed strike. He was right, as he always is, but didn't get the ball at his feet enough. But for his performance, he deserves a 6. Next up, we got the forwards, and first we got nicolas Pepe, and he was a little anonymous creatively. He received much of Arsenal's ball progression, but didn't threaten as often as he should have done. However, the intangibles of his game were beyond brilliant. He pressed high, ran hard, and his attitude looked fierce, and he is someone that we have to keep a look out for moving into the new season, and he deserves a 6. Next up, we got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and he does really love to play against Chelsea, and he did show his age slightly last season, but he played like he was 5 years younger, especially in the first half. His end product in the box though was rather woeful, and Chelsea locked him down as the game went on. He was decent at right wing as well, but had to score off a Nuno Tavares cross late on, so his rating for me is a 5. In terms of the next striker, we got Alexander Lacazette, and he dropped deeper with mixed results. He defended well and was good in possession, but didn't show in the box quite enough for my liking, and he should have done a bit better on a few number of occasions, and I think for his performance he deserves a 5 as well. Next up, we got the substitutes, and first of all we got Granit Xhaka, and he came on for Thomas Partey and looked to make an instant impact with a brilliant ball for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He had quite a good showing, and it was good to hear the Arsenal fans at the Emirates greet him positively, and with contract news still up in the air, good appearances are a necessity, and Granit Xhaka is starting the season as he means to continue, and it was an excellent header for the goal as well, and for me, probably the man of the match in terms of the Arsenal players, and he deserves an 8 for his performance. Next up we got Ben White, and he got a warm welcome during his warm-up and a rousing cheer upon entering the field for the second half, and made up his entire fee in a single moment with an excellent goal line block from a rather foolish Hakim Ziyech breakaway, with another goal line clearance to his name and a number of excellent defensive contributions. Ben White looks worth the £50 million in my opinion, and he was very vocal. You can see he's a level above all the other players that were around him, and in terms of Ben White's rating, I think it's fair to say he deserves a 7. Next up we got Hector Bellerin, and he was awful errant pass to slip in Tammy Abraham just after coming on the pitch, sloppy play generally, and he needs to go. And Hector Bellerin for me is a player that I see that needs to be sold. I think Inter Milan are going to be getting themselves a very poor player in the form of Hector Bellerin, and he deserves a 2 for his performance. Next up we got Nuno Tavares, and he looked good going forwards and was unlucky to receive a yellow card for a relatively run-of-the-mill challenge, and he defended well too. And Nuno Tavares for me looks like a very solid signing by Mikel, as someone that can more or less play understudy to Kieran Tierney, and he can also operate maybe as a right back or a left back under Mikel as well, and he gets a 6 for his performance. Next up we got Albert Sambi Lokonga, and he was solid against Granit Xhaka, but he was not quite up to the Premier League standard, but a very good cameo. For me, I'd rather see him start against Spurs and possibly Brentford as well, because we will see more or less how he feels, how he fades into the Premier League, even though he did look very well in the previous matches, but he gets a 5 for his performance. Next up we got Joe Willock, and he scored a goal that wasn't counted because goal line technology wasn't enabled and the linesman wasn't paying enough attention at the time, and he looked exceedingly bright in my opinion. And I think for his performance, it's fair to say he does deserve a 7 because he did look bright and he did have a chance which pretty much should have been a goal in my opinion. Next up we got Sead Kolasinac, and he looked very shaky as a left-sided centre-back, leaving Ben White a lot to do on a number of occasions. He did have a decent passing performance once the game opened up completely. But to be honest, Sead Kolasinac looks way below the pecking order. He looks very poor in an Arsenal shirt, and I think he's someone that should be sold come this summer transfer window, and he deserves a 4 for his performance. Next up we got Eddie Nketiah, and he was probably borderline man of the match despite a limited minutes because he looked very bright as he had the whole of pre-season, in very good form at the moment. He looks like he wants to score, he looks very tenacious, and he looks like he wants to make a difference to this Arsenal squad, and I think he deserves a 7 for his performance. So these are my player ratings in the game versus Chelsea, but moving on to the next game, we got Spurs, and hopefully Mikel Arteta makes a new difference and a big move.